Hello and welcome to Really Dicey. I'm Matt and I'm here with my brother Seth. And today we're going to talk about ECC's The Dying Earth. A week or so ago, I did a unboxing and now we're going to dive into it a little more. So before we get started, like and subscribe. So here we go. I've got my cup of dungeon tea and we're all set.
And I have my trusty Dying Earth omnibus.
Yes, Seth and I have been Dying Earth fans for quite some time. I've got some of the old books here. They're really fantastic. It is truly unique. It is, well, it was at the time. It was so popular it's become a subgenre of its own. I mean, it's a genre, the Dying Earth, the incredible far future. It's really fantastic. Earth is depopulated. There's very few people around. All the mountains have been beaten down to hills. The sun is swollen and red and is often described as wobbling in the sky. So you get this immense sense of age.
Earth is so old that nobody really knows much of the history because it's gone up and down so many times that a lot of people don't know, and most people don't care anymore. They know Earth is dying. Yep. They know the sun's going to go out soon. They don't know when. So most are like drink and keep merry for tomorrow ye die type of mentality.
Jack Vance leans into that with his purposely incomplete descriptions. So he'll mention a creature, but he won't tell you what it looks like.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, the Gru. I don't know. And you know, he goes even further by his just ridiculous use of vocabulary. He uses really obscure words, and if that wasn't bad enough, maybe about a third of them are actually made up. I mean, they sound like words, but they're not. So let's get to the game. So this is it here. It comes in a box set. I love box sets. So if you're going to play this game, have your dictionary ready so you can look up the words. The writers actually made it a game amongst themselves to try to use Vancian language. So, I mean...
And it is very evident from the first page.
Oh, yeah, right away. I mean, the first book's called The Player's Librum. It's not book. No, we can't say book. So in this box set, I love box sets. I'm so glad box sets are making a comeback. You get 3 books here. The box set costs $60. So your first book is really the player's handbook. It starts with a setting of the world, you know, a little bit about the dying Earth, and a list of stories. It's got a wonderful page where it outlines. I mean, it gives you a list of all the dying Earth stories and novels, and even highlights which ones they think you should read. I mean, you should read them all, but this is a good way to get started. You know, you can look at their recommended reading. So we go in. We've got historical places and events. So as you said, this is the I think it's a 21st eon. So the world is unimaginably old, and the scholars have divided the world into these 21 eons, and there's actually a surprising amount of time travel in this game, so you can move around to different eons. Talks a little bit about the notable people, groups, places, other worlds. There are demons and alien worlds and all sorts of things like that. We then go. Yep.
We also get the impression that this Earth is so old, and that anybody who had the means to leave has already left, like thousands of years ago. So you almost get the idea that the dying Earth is set somewhere in the galaxy that nobody pays any attention to anymore. That, yeah.
Yeah, there you definitely get that. A lot of when they talk about gods, a lot of the gods have just left or don't care anymore. um, we then talk about the classes. There are 4 new classes. There's curiosos, items, weird items.
Yeah. Everybody starts with one. Yeah.
Yep. So to play this game, I should have started with this actually. You need Dungeon Crawl Classics. This is not a complete game. You need the Dungeon Crawl Classics game to play this. I suppose you could use the Mutant Crawl Classics as well, because that game includes how to roll the dice in the game. So some of the stuff it talks about wouldn't apply, but I think you can make that work if you wanted to. And in a chronology, it would probably be Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Crawl Classics, and then the Dying Earth. So it starts out by telling you how this game relates to your Dungeon Crawl Classics game, like how the classes are changed and how you can bring them along if you have them, because it's really easy to have the, with all the magic and fantasy and technology in the different Dungeon Crawl Classic games, it's really easy to bring players back and forth. So if you want to bring your characters from your Dying Earth from your DCC game into your Dying Earth, it tells you what changes to make for the classes, and they're not really a lot. So first, clerics. Again, clerics don't get a lot of love. So most of the gods are dead or forgotten or not paying any attention. So you could bring your cleric along, but he would have to find some other means of gaining access to his spells, some sort of philosopher or zealot. Thieves, of course, you can bring your thief along. There are lots of thieves, always a lot of thieves. There are rules to allow your thief to access magic. So you can do that. Warriors, elves, dwarves, halflings can all be brought along, but they're less common. Warriors,
yes, they'll be extremely rare.
Yes, particularly your demi-humans. But they're no stranger than anything else on the Dying Earth, so they can come along. Warriors, I think warriors are it's just most people in the Dying Earth try to avoid combat. So, this is coming straight out of the novels, and I think they did a good job of really capturing the novels. There aren't really a lot of what you would call warriors in the novels. Wizards that's the big thing. So wizards in Dungeon Crawl Classics tap the raw energy of magic. So you roll for your event, you roll for every spell, curial magic, spell burn, all that crazy stuff. And they are even more chaotic compared to the magicians of the Dying Earth. So to reflect that, your mage, your wizard, has a few changes on the spell chart table. So spells are a little more likely to go horribly wrong or horribly great, just in case your wizard wasn't chaotic enough. So then it goes into a character creation. So you roll up your stats the normal way, you get some new occupations. So almost everybody in the Dying Earth stories is a jerk. There are just not very many nice people at all. And this game really leans into that. There is a chart. Everybody starts the game with an animus, which means a hatred, right? an enemy. So before you've even started the game, you've pissed somebody off. So you roll on a chart to find out what you've done. Did you steal something? Did you, cross a wizard? Did you pretend to be, a politician? All sorts of crazy stuff.
Another thing that's introduced is something called grudge tokens.
Yes.
A grudge token is whenever you roll a 1 that results in a critical failure, you get a grudge token. A grudge token can use to force another player or the judge to re-roll any die. And of course, the second one would have to be taken. However, anytime you roll a critical success, like 20, you get rid of all grudge tokens.
Right. Yeah. It's a really interesting mechanic to really capture something very prevalent in the stories, particularly the one character, Kujal, who is just a self-entitled jackass, who takes offense at everything. So the idea is that your character is angered by the vicissitudes of life, right? So something bad happens to you, and you get angry and you want to take it out on somebody. So I rolled a critical 1, so I get a grudge token, which means I am angry that I cut my finger, and I'm going to use that grudge token on Seth because somehow I think it's his fault. So yeah. I like the mechanic. It's strange to see a game with a mechanic built in to tear the party apart. But it is presented as an optional rule, so you can decide not to use it, or you can just lean into being a vindictive murder hobo. So brings us to the actual classes. All right, so who we got here? We've got. I'm going to take these slightly out of order. We've got the Vat thing. So, high-level magicians often try to create life, and those are Vat things. And this class is a Vat thing. You're a fully grown artificial creature, and you have it's a warrior sort of class with built-in magic, and an ability to call on your creator like a patron. It's really, really interesting and strange. Next up, we have a wayfarer, which is kind of like a thief, kind of a thief sort of adventurer. So they have some access to magic. They're the luck class. They have lots of luck. They have this ability to use rhetoric, which is kind of like a fast talk. So they can try to deceive their way out of a situation. There's the witch, which is a character that is a magic user that leans completely into patrons. He or she is all about their patron, and they perform these dark rituals to their patron, including sacrifices of animals and people and other things, and they use a lot of curses, so that they're putting a lot of curses on people. I thought that was a really interesting class. I was a little. It seems pretty dark. I mean, having a party. So, but I think the class that I immediately thought of when I heard about the Dying Earth was the magician. And I thought, so this is a really interesting situation, because D&D magic, as we've known it for the past 40 years or so, is taken from Jack Vance's books. It's often called Vancian magic. The idea of In the morning, you study a spell and cram it into your head, and you have so many spell slots, and you cast it. And then when Dungeon Crawl Classics came out, one of the defining features of the game was really upending Vancian magic. So you have spells that your character knows, but you don't cast them and forget them. You roll on a chart to see how well you do. And I know, for instance, Seth, that's one of your favorite parts of Dungeon Crawl Classics. So I was really interested to see how they were going to handle Vancian magic, because you can't really make a game about Dying Earth without using Vancian magic.
Sure, yeah.
But at the same time, were they going to lose their special magic? And it seemed like a paradox. But I got to admit, I'm really impressed. They seem to have squared the circle. Magicians are magic users who have studied science and studied magic to a finely honed craft, and they do memorize their spells, and they do cast them as slots, and then they're out of their head. But they know the spell. You when you first learn the spell, you roll on the spell result chart, and you see what you get, and that's how you normally cast the spell, unless you try to improve it when you go up a level. So it's not different every time you cast it, but it is different for every magician, or not everyone, but there are different. Some people will know the spell better than others, and then there are rules for customizing the spell. There are rules for creating new spells. There's a force of will, which allows you to improve your spells. It's kind of like spell burn, but it's a little different. So I was actually really impressed with the magician. What do you think of the classes, Seth?
Well, I like the VAT thing. The VAT thing really leads into why did the magician create you? You could have been created as a fighter, as a guard, or you could be created as just a painter or sculptor, or created as a living encyclopedia. So, and that depends on what weapon training you have and what alignment you are. Another thing is every VAT thing starts with a flaw, and there's a huge table to roll on and modified by luck, I think.
Right.
See which flaw, like your eyes could glisten, so you get a minus for hiding in the dark, or you start with another appendage, or you start with two appendages fused together, things like that. The Wayfarer, Matt was saying earlier about how the grudge rules don't really tend to improve party cohesion. Well, the Wayfarer, how they use luck can really sort of, well, let's give you an example, is that when somebody else besides the Wayfarer uses luck, and there's a Wayfarer in the party, the Wayfarer makes a check, and if the check goes one way, the luck that the other person uses comes from the Wayfarer instead. So the Wayfarer expends the luck, which makes the Wayfarer even more unhappy with the verisimilitude of the universe. But on the other side, when the Wayfarer uses luck, a check is made, and he might pull it from other people in the party. So again, that doesn't really lead to party cohesion, although it could lead to very interesting encounters. The magician I liked, and a study of mercurial magic, they have their version, which is when you learn a spell, this would be a spell coming from an earlier magician, and that earlier magician would have left their stamp on it.
Yes.
So it's their way of mercurial magic. of having a weird effect for your version of the spell. Now, what Matt was saying earlier, you roll when you learn the spell to see what it does. So every time you cast a spell, it does that one thing. So when you go up a level, you have an option to take that roll again, usually with a higher spell check if you went up a level. But that doesn't guarantee you're going to get a higher result. You could get a lower result. So that's interesting. I didn't really look at the witch too much, although I think the curses are a interesting new mechanic. There's actually lists of curses like there are magical spells.
Yeah. The second book is The Primer of Practical Magic. So we were talking about all the new rules for magic. There are so many of them that they get their own book. So here you get the detailed rules for the spell provenance, as Seth was talking about, and you get the rules for customization. There are rules for that force of will. There are magical organizations that they talk about, colleges and groups and that sort of thing. There's a section, chapter 3 is all about witches. So you learn more about the demonic corruption and their pacts and their curses. There's two pages about philosophy and religion in Dying Earth. So that's for the clerics. They only get the 2 pages. On one hand, I think that's kind of too bad. On the other hand, that's in keeping with the novels, right? There aren't a lot of spellcasting clerics in the novels. There are religious groups, but they're usually, philosophers or cultists or something, not your adventuring cleric. On a side note, I think that's never mind. that's a discussion for another time. Clerics, what are they? But so there are a lot of extra rules for magic, and then you get the spells. There's a lot of new spells, which are great. Which are really interesting. A lot of spells you'll recognize if you've read the books, which are fantastic. I love seeing the being able to cast the spells that you read about in the book. That's really good stuff. It's an awful lot of new rules. It would take some work to incorporate it all. It depends on how you do with all those rules. Personally, I would introduce them slowly because I don't think I can handle it all at once. In a lot of ways, Dungeon Crawl Classics and especially Dying Earth is like fudge. I like it, but it's really rich, and so I can't have too much of it. So I like to take bits of it and put it in my other food. Well, that's not what you do with fudge. That doesn't work. Okay, no. Anyway, the analogy doesn't work, but you get it. One thing I I mentioned the magician rules for customization. I love that idea. You can customize your own spell. I would be really tempted to take that and try to apply it to other games as well. Because it seems like something that your D&D mage should be able to do. What did you think about this? The new spells?
One thing I liked about this book and something they bring from the Dying Earth is they really stress this balance in the universe as far as transactions go. So any magical artifact or any magical knowledge is very closely guarded. Most of it's been lost to the eons, and so there's only a set amount left, and it's very jealously guarded. So if you're asking for something, there's a list of tables for ideas that the person you're asking is going to ask for something in return. Nothing is ever given freely in the dying earth.
Yes. Yes.
Except perhaps violence. But
yeah. Yeah, you're right. It is a setting of paranoia and mistrust and selfishness, and the rules do a wonderful job of encouraging that.
And one thing people in the novels will be pleased, ion stones are a thing. They give you rules for ion stones.
Yes, well, yeah, they would have to be in there. They're the most famous magical item in the Dying Earth, and yeah, the ion stones were suitably impressive, and they matched pretty well how they were described in the novels.
Ion stones are another example of this balance in the universe. In order to use a ion stone, you have to give it a point of intelligence and a memory of a companion, memory of an enemy, memory of a lost love, memory of an ability, and you lose that memory so long as that ion stone is giving you the benefit of the effect. And at any time, you can say, okay, I don't want the effect anymore. Give me back my memory and give me back my intelligence, in which case the ion stone goes dormant and you don't get the effect anymore.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really interesting. And I thought you could tell some great stories with that. Personally, I would ask the player what kind of memory do you want to give the stone, but not the exact memory, because they don't remember it anymore. So, right. So the only way to find out what memory you gave away is to take it back. You're like, I'm going to give it the memory of a lost love, or, okay, great. You don't know who that lost was because you don't remember.
And what I found interesting is when you get an ion stone, it's actually the essence of a star in its infancy. So you actually bond with it. When you give it a memory, depending on the memory you give it, is the type of ion stone that it's going to be, what color it is, what effect it's going to give. So I suppose if we're doing what Matt was saying, if you give a memory, but you don't know what memory it was, then it'll give you an effect, but you don't know, you thinking that, hey, this is just a random effect. You wouldn't know unless
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It just the opportunities for mischief
yes.
are quite amazing. Okay, so lastly in the box, well, not quite lastly, but the last book, there's book 3, Intimate Anatomy of Several Creatures and Personages of the 21st Era. So what we have here is some patrons for your magician or witch. You have lands, like, so areas in the dying earth. Then you have a chapter on talisman, amulets, talismans, amulets, and instruments, both minor and major. So basically magic items. So here you find a lot of really interesting things. From the novels, you've got the ion stones, you've got the strange divided flute. All of them have really interesting backgrounds. Some of them are magical, some of them are technological, and some of them just are. No one can figure out what they are. They can't figure out if they're magical or not. So those are really interesting. A lot of story potential in each one. They definitely fit the giant Dying Earth, but they could be moved to other games as well. You could drop them into your Dungeon Crawl Classics games. Like I mentioned before, there's a lot of space and time travel in this game, so you could move back and forth through time. You could mix your games up.
One of the things they bring is also magicians in the Dying Earth use a lot of lesser magical entities to do their magic for them, like Sendestins or other things, and they actually bring rules for that into the game as well.
That's right. So you can summon these creatures and bind them to you and have them do your magic for you. It's ironic that in the novels, when a magician reaches a certain level of expertise and skill, they summon these creatures and make them do everything for them. So the magicians don't actually cast a lot of spells. They just make these guys do it all for them. So that can be reflected as well. Then you have a monsters manual, basically, where you get all the famous creatures. You've got the Gru and the Archvault and
the Visp.
Yeah, the Visp. Yeah, all sorts of strange creatures from the Dying Earth. Lots of hybrids, lots of strange demon creatures. Again, they all fit very well into the Dying Earth, of course, but they can be exported if you wanted to into your DCC game. So we round off this book with some games of chance, some tables full of just strange things. They have a great chapter on inhabitants, right? So because the world is depopulated, you have lots of isolated little settlements of people, and they can be very strange and different, and there's not a lot of trade between them. So traveling is very dangerous and can be very bizarre. So you can roll on this chart to see who are these people. So you can get, these are small, pale people with dark eyes and long, with dark hair and long, still eyes. They worship a secret beast that walks about at night. And their unusual punishment is they use vices to slowly pull the delinquent's nose to a length of 2 feet. I mean, that says something about the world, that the three things on this chart are the inhabitants of the settlement, their strange beliefs, and their unusual punishments. So you're going to get in trouble with these people. So, then you have foods, and you have a chart. You have charts on Vancian language, so the strange words that he uses and he made up, all sorts of things to help you capture the feeling of the game, because it is a very evocative game. There's definitely a certain feel to it that you want to capture beyond just the rules. So the rules do a good job. And the third book has an index, which they get a lot of points from me for including an index. That's very useful, because especially if you're looking through 3 books. The other thing in the box set is this lovely map of the Dying Earth. So shows you where things are, so that's great. So all told, this is a fantastic game for, obviously for fans of the Dying Earth, but I think it would make a great introduction if you're intrigued by the Dying Earth. You've played DCC, you're looking for a new setting, you want to try something out. I think it does a wonderful job of telling you what the Dying Earth is, and you can capture it and play it with just this box set, I believe. What do you think, Seth? What was your impression? as a game.
I really thought they brought the feel and the spirit of the Dying Earth actually forward. I think other systems have tried in the past, but I think this is the system that comes closest to the what Jack Vance envisioned in the Dying Earth novels. And I myself can't wait to play it.
Okay, well, we are definitely going to play it. I promised you I would, so we're going to play it. One thing that concerns me, we've mentioned several times, is building a party, like a party of adventures. That's just how people play role-playing games. But it's not really the way the books are told. It's really kind of single people.
Yes.
So
even even the group of magicians in the latter stories, Rialto the Magnificent, Marvelous, I think. Even that group of magicians was really a group of individuals who just came together just out of necessity, and at a moment's notice, they turn on each other to get their own knowledge.
Yes, so I would think you have to be clever. You have to have some clever way of getting your characters together. So, in a short term, you can just dump them all in the adventure, like they were all on a ship that crashed and they're all together there. If you want them to, be an adventuring party, then you've got to come up with some sort of rationale. Fortunately, you have so many options in Dying Earth because things are so weird. So my wife came up with this idea. What if the characters are all linked by revenge? They're all seeking revenge on the same magician or demon lord. So they're working together. They don't like each other, but that's the best way for them to get revenge. Or you could even do something stranger. Maybe they all ate from a particular food at a noble's feast, or they were tricked into it by some evil cultists, or they were sold it in a marketplace. And lo and behold, to them, this food actually contains pieces of essence of a demon, and they are bound together by those different essences. So they can't travel further than, a mile apart from each other. And if you think using demon pudding to keep your party to stick together is, ridiculous and strange, you haven't read enough Vance.
Another interesting way you could do is you could have the whole party be vat things. And the thing about vat things, as I mentioned earlier, there are different types of vat. So vat things aren't all the same, just each with a flaw. You could have a martial vat thing. You could have a more agile vat thing. You could have a vat thing that knows magic.
Yeah.
And you could have all the vat things all be created by the same guy or by different, and they're all connected that way. And maybe they're all on a quest to find where they were created or find who created them.
Yeah, that definitely works. You could be a coven of witches, for instance. Those classes, you're all the same class, but you could be very different because you've rolled in the charts. The vat things are made for different reasons. The witches could have, different patrons and curses and everything. So you can definitely make a party. It just requires a little more thought. As far as adventures go, on Dungeon Crawl on the Goodman Games site, they actually have, I believe, 9 adventures for this game. So you can definitely play those adventures, and you can make it work. It might be
another
challenge.
Another crossover you could do is definitely in the Dying Earth, the mutants from Mutant Crawl Classics the sentient plants from Youth Control Classics, that would almost feel right at home in the Dying Earth. Because Dying Earth, you find so many weird things going on that those could fit right in.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's a great game to play on its own. It's a great resource for fans of the Dying Earth. It is a great game to incorporate into your other games. And we didn't even I didn't mention the artwork, but the artwork is phenomenal, and they've got some great names. Earl Otis, which is my favorite, classic D&D artist, did a lot of the artwork. So it's great, and we are definitely going to play it, and then we'll come back and tell you how it went. Any final thoughts, Seth?
No, other than if you get the chance to buy this box set, I would definitely do it. And hopefully in the future, if they release each book individually, if you're a player, I would definitely buy the player's Librum and the Magic one if you're considering playing one of the Magic classes.
So I don't know if they're for sale now individually, but I know that's clearly what they had in mind, because at the back of each book is a barcode and a price. So they're listed for $12.99 piece. Oh, well, no. One's $12.99, the other are $19.99. So there you go. Yes, well, there you go. Check out The Dying Earth. It is a unique and amazing experience. Okay, thanks for joining us, and let us know in the descriptions. Let us know in the, just never mind, go away. Thanks.
Comments. He means comments.
Comments. That's what I meant. Oh, never mind. Just go out and get the game and play it. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.